Hi there, you're listening to the Bridal Beauty Business Podcast. This is a show all about the bridal hair and makeup business. Forget competing on price, it's time to niche down and know your worth. This podcast was created for you. It was created to help you grow your bridal business so that you can get the clients you want, do the work you love, and charge the rates that you deserve. Today's guest is a former U.S. Navy badass. After 12 years of working in tech and marketing, she built a successful six-figure lash and brow business in less than 3 years. Yes, I did say lashes and brows. She's not a makeup artist, but what she did to grow her business, you need to do it too. Rickina is known as the Lash CEO, and she's an SEO master. She built her six-figure business not by focusing on social media. That's right, no Instagram or Facebook, but what she did do was use the latest in website, SEO, online, and offline marketing strategies. Rickina is all about working smarter, spending less hours in the salon, and less hours on social media. And she's going to teach you how to do the same and how to make SEO and keywords work for you. Hi!
How are you?
I'm so good. I am so excited to have you here today. Super excited.
Thank you.
I loved your talk at the Lash conference last year, LashCon.
Thank you.
You broke it down so well. You broke it down really well.
Thanks. Well, it's kind of a confusing topic. So I feel like we just don't know how it works, and having it simple makes it easy that people can just take what I share and use and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It's definitely simplifying it, because I know I've tried in the past to go in, do the research, watch YouTube videos, and they take you on to all these different crazy tangents and you don't know where to focus your attention. So I feel like having you on here is going to be a very, very unique experience for a makeup artist, because a lot of, I don't think they have access to this at all. And for you to so generously share it at LashCon was amazing. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm excited to get this broken down and so people can dive in for themselves.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I'm talking to you, but tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started off as a lash artist, how you got into helping other businesses, and how you got into the whole marketing side of this.
Okay. So yeah, I started right out of the Navy. I worked in the Navy, and then I had 12 years where I was just doing technology, technician, break fix stuff. And then I found this program and was able to get retrained to do esthetician work, and that transformed into lashes because I just wasn't busy enough as an esthetician, and lashes just became my thing. I hated it at first, and then I got really good at it, and I was terrible, and I was like, this is therapy, and it became just everything. And I stopped doing, my waxing and facials, and was doing more lashes, and then brows came along. And so it was just brows are everything. And I was trying to do half and half, and it just became a specialty. I was doing lashes, doing brows. And all along, I had always been interested in marketing and just, how do you get to Google's first page? And, just from even before I started my beauty business, I had started other businesses and, failed miserably at them. But I had learned along the way, how you have to kind of play with Google and understand SEO in order to show up there organically. So I was able to apply that to my beauty business. And yeah, it just helped me become more visible on Google, so I don't have to rely on social media as much. So I don't know if you know my social media pains. I'm just not as good at it as a lot of people are that can just kill it on social media. It's just not my thing. I know it's a good way to connect with people, but for me, it's been Google and organically being found. And when people do a search, I show up pretty well. So I've just kind of ran with that and just trying to show people that, this is something that you can somewhat control more than dealing with algorithms on Instagram and Facebook. And yes, and having to pay now to play. It's a whole different, ball game now on social media.
So frustrating. And Rickina, I don't think you give yourself enough credit, because you still put out content on Instagram. You're still providing value. Everything you do is with so much purpose. And I think people really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And everyone always says, I feel all the key players always say, it's choose something and double down on it. So for you to know that that's not your strength, but Google is, and double down on that, all the power to you for not wasting your time in something that's not working for you. And so why bother? Why frustrate yourself? If you know what's working, you're getting the clients through the door in the way that works for you. Well, hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I appreciate that because I feel like so many people push social media, and I can definitely appreciate it for the tool that it is. But I just know for me, I don't know how to really connect locally with my audience on Instagram. Every time someone actually finds me, when I ask them, either through my appointment process or when I'm there with a client, I'm like, how did you find me? When they say Instagram, I'm just like, what? You actually found me on Instagram? And they're like, oh, yeah, I've been following you or whatever. But it's usually through Google search. So I just put my effort more there than on social media. But I know to connect with other business owners and lash artists and brow artists and now people just in the beauty industry in general, Instagram and social media is how we do that. So it's kind of like this division of locally, and for my local business it's one way, but when I connect with other business owners it's still pretty much Instagram and social media.
But I think you broke it down perfectly and you explained it perfectly. It's like Instagram is great for connection, but when it
Hmm.
comes to clients finding you, it's still Google. Like I know personally when I'm looking for something, I go
Yeah.
to Google first, and then when
Yeah.
I find what I'm looking for, I will then go to their Instagram. But
Right. Yeah.
Google is usually where I go first. So
Hmm.
why do you
Absolutely.
think Google is so important?
Well, I think it's because it's such a huge industry player in terms of when people are looking for something. You said it yourself, like when you're looking for a service or you're looking for a product, that's typically where we go first. So being able to understand why people go there first is huge. And then another step is, what is Google actually looking for when people are going to search? So Google's platform is basically to serve the user, to serve the search. And if you can't provide a good search for those users, Google is not going to consider you favorable or relevant. So it's that relevancy that you can go to Google and it's like, they pretty much want to give you what you're looking for, versus Instagram. It's like, well, Instagram chooses to show you this. And it
Hmm.
may be something else that you're actually looking for, but if people don't use that hashtag, you're invisible. So,
So I find that I'm often getting emails from people and from web builders saying, hey, let me help you show up on the first page of Google.
mhm,
So is this something, so not just showing up on the first page of Google, but like everything in terms of Google when it comes to like keywords and showing up in the first couple of pages or even just
right.
being seen? Is this something that we can do ourselves or do you need outside help?
Um, that's a tricky one because there is legitimate businesses and like marketing agencies that can help you. I say if you have the time to really learn and understand how SEO works, and we all have a lot of time right now, that you can go in and kind of drill down and figure it out. And especially that's kind of my focus too, is helping beauty professionals figure these things out, because once it is broken down, like you said, we can do it. I find that when your sole purpose is we have to get on the first page, we have to get on the first page, and people that say, oh yeah, we can do that for you guaranteed, to me that's a red flag. Because one, it is a little unpredictable in terms of all these other elements that are a part of what gets you to that first page. It's several things working together, and if any one of those pieces are not in place, then you'll find yourself on page 3. And we all know once you're not on page 1 or even sometimes 2, you don't really exist and people aren't going to find you. So I think it's more about taking an honest inventory of where you're sitting organically right now in Google. If you're on page 3 or 4, chances are you can do some tweaks and find yourself on page 2 and maybe even on page 1. But if you're like nowhere to be seen, then that probably is going to take a little more professional steps to get you there, because it's probably you have no type of relevance whatsoever on your website, or either you don't have a website at all. So if the website is just thrown up and there's nothing there SEO wise, then you're probably going to need some help. But if you are taking some steps towards it and you're there but you just want better visibility, then absolutely I say we can push and kind of do that ourselves.
So you say for the first page of Google, there's several things that are working together.
Hmm.
Like, what are those things? Like, what are we talking about? What are we focusing on?
Okay. So Google looks at a lot of different things. And some of these phrases they're confusing within themselves, but what we want to focus on is just making sure that our domain name is actually one that has a little bit of age to it. So if you haven't already purchased www.mybeautifulmakeupstudio.com, then definitely get on it and purchase that domain that you want, because the longer you own it, Google looks upon that favorably. So that's number one. Number two is making sure that everything on your website is accurate in terms of your NAP, and that's your name, address, and phone number. So when, say, you're listed on a directory that's local to your city that lists makeup artists that are specializing in weddings, if you're in that directory, everything on that directory has to exactly match what Google sees on your website. If it's something ridiculous, like if you're in Suite 101 and on your website you put STE 101, but then on that directory you spell out suite, that's a conflict.
What?
And Google's like, that's not exactly the same, so it can't be relevant. So it literally has to be accurate down to the T. If you have your zip code and you do that dash and the other four numbers, make sure it's that dash
Oh
and
my
the other four
God, that
numbers.
stresses me out already.
Yeah. It's literally that specific. And unfortunately, it's these little discrepancies that a lot of times people are like, oh my gosh, I'm listed on all these. But if you go through and like, if you moved or if your number changed or any of that, like the big stuff, yeah, that's definitely a flag. So that's another thing. Another thing that they look at is how many other external websites link back to your website. And then they look at, what is that website? Is it something relevant? Is it just some stupid link farm that has no significance whatsoever? It has to be something with a high domain authority. And again, that goes to that domain name being an older, well-known domain authority. So if you can get a link from like Huffington Post or Refinery 29 or something like that, that's a higher domain authority. And that tells Google that, hey, this website probably means a little something, more people are checking it out if this higher domain authority website is linking back to this one. So
would that also be like wedding directories, like
absolutely.
weddingwire.com and publications in wedding blogs and things like
Mm-hmm.
that as well?
Yep. And even websites that are like .edu, a lot of times those aren't as relevant in the beauty community, but if you can find a way to make it relevant, if there's some domain that whatever education and maybe they're doing, I don't know, a survey and they link back to your website, that's huge. .edus are like huge. I haven't found a way myself to be able to incorporate them. I'm still trying to figure that out. But yeah, it's just those websites that are highly traveled and highly respected. If you can get a link back to your website from them, that's another thing that Google looks at favorably.
So I guess a great way of doing that would be guest writing for other wedding
Yes.
websites,
Mm-hmm.
other magazines, guest writing, blog
Absolutely.
posting,
Yep.
any way that you can contribute that they would want to credit you
Link
back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So domain name, accurate NAP, external website links.
Yep. And that's sometimes called like backlinking, when they link back to you. You've heard that phrase. That's similar. There was one other thing that I wanted to say about that. Now it's eluding me. I can't think of it.
And I cut you off. I'm like, I had to ask.
No, it's fine. It's definitely so many different things. And I'm actually in the process now of doing a deeper dive, because Google is slowly changing how it looks at results now too. So it's this whole nother evolution of change in search again, that if you're not keeping up with it, then you could lose rank, and that's just not good.
Is it change in a good way, or is it change in like an Instagram algorithm way?
It's just a better
Okay.
way to be relevant. It's just a better way to be relevant, and making sure that the content you're putting out is something that Google sees and says, yes, this is a good search return.
And I guess keywords would definitely be up there with the top.
Yes, for sure. And I'll talk about keywords here in a second.
Okay, so I see, and I say I see, but I do this too, and I used to do this on my older sites. I'm getting a little bit better with it. So when you go to your makeup website and you click on the page, at the top bar, a lot of times it's just flooded with keywords. So to be clear, I'll give the example of what I used to do.
Mm-hmm.
It would be my name,
Okay.
dash, and it would say Brampton makeup artist, Toronto makeup artist, Brampton hair and makeup, Toronto hair and makeup, Ottawa hair and makeup, top Indian makeup artist. And it would just be like loaded with like, I think there must have been like 20 keywords.
Okay.
in that title bar. So like,
Okay.
and I see a
Okay.
lot of people do this.
Okay.
I've been on a lot of websites to do research, and I find like a lot of
Okay.
other artists, I think somebody probably started it and everyone just continued it. But is this good?
Okay.
Is this bad? Are we doing more harm?
I think it's probably, it used to be something that I think would work in the past, and it's called like keyword stuffing or keyword padding. And what, in the mindset of doing it, you think, okay, well, if it's in that title bar, then it would show up as relevant. So what I was saying before is how Google is kind of evolving a little bit and changing and trying to get smarter in a sense, is that it's looking less at that now. So you can't just have keywords just randomly spread out through a particular page. So if you have a wedding makeup page, all the content in that wedding makeup page has to kind of relate and make sense to that particular topic solely. So not putting it all in the title bar for sure. We definitely want to start steering clear of that and just put the main focus. So if you know that this particular page is summer wedding makeup or whatever that niche focus is, that should be your domain name / that with dashes. And then the rest of the content that's on there should all revolve around that core subject. And also, like when you first start whatever it is, if it's a blog post or if it's just like a landing page, the first word should naturally contain whatever that core messages for that page. So it just has to sound like you're speaking and not like just throwing all the words together and then start whatever the content is. It has to naturally flow. And that just shows you how much Google is evolving and just wanting to make it a better experience for that end search user. So if someone's specifically looking for a makeup artist that specializes in summer makeup, they're going to go and type that in and hope that someone out there is smart enough on their website to have that. And then when Google sees that, they're like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what they want to see. And that's when you show up on that first page. And another thing to think is the more specific you can get, even though it seems like you might be isolating a lot of brides, it actually helps you focus down. And that gives you a chance to show up on that first page quicker versus not showing up at all, because now you're really specific. You're really niching down, and Google looks at that favorably if you can really, hone into what that particular niche
Oh my
is.
God, there's so many questions I have just with those couple of sentences you just threw at me. I'm like, where do I begin and how do I not backtrack? Okay. So from what I understand, what you're saying is that if you're choosing a keyword,
Mhm.
it should be like a main keyword for the page.
Yes.
And it should be in the first sentence
Yes.
of that page, but very naturally
Yes.
spoken as so, right? Not
Absolutely.
stuffing it
Mhm.
like a padded bra with a bunch of tissues coming out of it or
Right.
anything like that. And then if you want to get closer to the first page of Google, you want to niche down.
Mhm.
And now I remember going back to what you said, you want to have a domain that has a little bit of age to it.
Yes.
So say you're doing all of these, and it sounds like blogging is also really important here because that's going to allow you to use keywords more naturally.
Yes. Absolutely.
So if you're a brand new web page, or you're like maybe 2 years old,
Mhm.
you're blogging consistently, like I'm just going to say like once a month. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's consistent or not.
Yeah.
Let's say once a month. Can you surpass the person that's been on Google for like 10 or like a year, like a domain of 10 years?
It depends. If they're actively like working that website, blogging consistently, they have a lot of traffic, it's doubtful. The key is to find keywords. They're called golden keywords, and they tend to be a little bit longer stream of keywords. And the reason that is because a lot of times you'll have a high volume of people looking for this particular string of keywords with lower competition. So a lot of times the people that are on the first page for a very popular keyword, say weddings, just in general, usually those first few ones there on that first page are pretty much untouchable. They've been there. It's like the big names that you're just not going to compete with. But if you're able to drill it down a little bit and say you're trying to do beach weddings with a hippie feel type, you know what I mean? Like you're really niching down, then your possibility of showing up on that first page when someone's looking for that is way higher, because now you've kind of eliminated that big, vast competition. And now you're honing in to maybe like 300 people searching for it, but no one is really like catering to them. So Google is literally scrambling to try to find something. But if you nail it, then it's like, oh, Google's like, this is easy. Bloop. you're right there on the front page.
So what about the people that feel like they're going to miss out? So I recently started niching down and it was probably the best thing I could do. And I was so scared to do this for so long until I heard another
Yeah.
podcast by the Brand Builders Group. And hopefully I
Okay.
can get him on here for an episode as well. But they were asking questions about your purpose in life. And I remember literally
Hmm.
screaming answers at the radio. And it was the first time I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. Like I felt my purpose and I was able to answer questions about the type of clients that I wanted and the type of clients that I
Okay.
was able to connect with. And I was always afraid of doing that, especially when I first moved into the city because I was brand new here. I felt like if I niched down into like a certain style or I did all my
Hmm.
marketing around that, I wasn't going to get clients. I wasn't going to be able to build up my clientele. I was going to be missing
Sure.
opportunities. But I was really getting people that like I did not click with or like as bad as it, like we like it worked, but like it really didn't work. Like the vibe was different or the style of makeup they were booking me for wasn't that style that I wanted to be doing.
Okay.
So, like, how do you convince people that like niching is the right thing to do and it's really going to set you apart and not get lost in the masses?
Well, I think what you said is huge to niching down because you have to also know who your core clientele is. And you really have to kind of set up that what they're calling like your ideal avatar, where you go through and you really get to know them. Like, what are their pain point? Why are they coming to you? Is it because they are unable to do it themselves and they don't want to spend the time? Or maybe they just want the experience of having professional makeup done. Like, really understand their frustrations and why they're reaching out to you and the services that you offer. Because once you can kind of get into their head, you can almost avoid attracting clients that, like you said, you don't kind of vibe well with, and you're just like, oh, this isn't what I was, hoping to attract. So I think once you do that and you start putting out pretty much who you are, and you can do that more on your website with like videos and just the whole vibe of what you're putting out, that helps to bring in the people that you're going to gel with and have similar values and interests, and they're going to seek you out because they're going to be like, oh, I immediately can vibe with her. I love what her website's doing. I love the education she's putting out there. Her tips are great. She seems personable, friendly. They know about you. And then it's like they've already kind of built that connection. And then if you've niched down to the particular type of wedding or the type of ceremony that they want, or if it's a niche type of vibe and feel to their wedding, it's almost going to be like perfect. You'll find less and less of those clients that are attracted to you that are like, ooh, not a good fit.
And then these videos that you're making and putting up, those are going to need keywords. So it's like, how do you even start to figure out what keywords you should be using and like these golden keywords?
Yeah. So I've been playing around with a couple of platforms. One of them is called Ask the Public. It's a visual, like a search engine for questions that people are asking around a certain topic. So if you go to that website, it's literally going to pull up like your keyword in like this beautiful sunshine looking like map with all these words out. And they will be categorized by how popular and how many people are asking these similar questions. I like using that because if I put in microblading, it'll pop up with all these different questions that people are asking. How much is it? How does it work? Aftercare, what do I do if I get them wet? All these things, and you'll know how to incorporate those particular questions because it'll show you like this one is a bright green dot in this particular question. So a lot of people are asking for that question. So you can take what that search engine is showing you, incorporate that into like a blog post, and then Google sees that as like a relevant way to return search results when people are asking those questions when maybe not a lot of people are addressing them. Because I feel like sometimes when we're in our industry, it's hard for us to kind of flip to the other side and be the client or the customer and think, well, what jargon are they using? Because we use what we use. Like, for us, we use like lash extensions. Well, most people don't say that. They say eyelash extensions. And
Yeah, that blew my mind. I'm like, what?
I didn't even realize that. I'm like, oh my gosh, almost all clients say eyelash extensions. Well, that's a good way to go and actually start catering towards that particular crowd or the clientele because that's what they're using, like eyelash extensions that look real or whatever. It's just things that we wouldn't even think. But once you go to a search engine like Ask the Public, you start opening your eyes to like all these ways that people are asking questions and not really getting served. So if we can serve those unanswered questions, that's one way to build that trust. And then that's one way to kind of start attracting better clients and more clients.
Okay, that's incredible because not only are you figuring out your keywords, those are relevant questions you can make content around and ideas that are like a golden, like you're like totally blew
Yes.
over that. I'm like, wait, what? They're telling you the questions that are being asked and they're color coding what's relevant.
Yeah.
That is,
Yeah.
if you're sitting on that and you're not doing anything with it, like you need to get out of business right now because like this is your money. This is it right
Yeah.
here. And I'm
Right.
always
Yeah.
going in like Facebook groups or like on Reddit trying to figure out like what's being asked. And that requires like a lot of
Yes.
time, a lot of research. And
Yeah.
this is just handing it to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a few of them too. I'm actually in the middle of this whole thing with Google and how they're changing. And the free workshop that I'm doing without like any upsells or anything in it, I literally want to sit down and like give this information and show people like, listen, this is what we have to be focusing on. And it's pretty much across the board, just beauty industry. It can be anything, makeup, spray tanning, nails, massage, hair, whatever it is, because in reality, there's all kinds of questions and all kinds of little niches that we can kind of fit ourselves into. And maybe our website isn't going to show up on the first page, but maybe this content page that we have shows up on the first page because it's nailing it so well. People are looking for this question. You've answered it beautifully. So Google's going to reward that particular page. But once people are there, I mean, if you're doing things right, you kind of got them. You can lure them in with that content, make something that's like an irresistible offer somewhere like, hey, while you're here, whatever, stop by for, I don't know, something and just get them connected so you can stay connected with those visitors versus having them come and then just bounce.
Just don't leave. Just stay a little longer.
Yes, for sure.
So we're not using the same keywords all the time then, are we? So what you're saying is just change your keywords?
So not necessarily changing them once you have them on the page. What you want to do is just kind of add to them. So if one page is focused on eye makeup, make everything about that page eye makeup and how you can do different looks or things that you can do to make it look natural or more dramatic, or keep that on there. And then have another page that kind of subsets to that. So I wouldn't necessarily go into the page and change your keywords. When you hear people say you have to keep your website updated or keep your blog updated, it just means adding new content to it. It doesn't necessarily mean going back to that page and changing it. It just means keeping it new, keeping it fresh, because Google looks at that favorably as well. So that's why you remember me saying, like, if you build a website or if you build a blog and it becomes like a ghost yard, that's even worse because that just looks like it's old and it's sitting there, and that's bad.
It's like half my pages.
We're all guilty of it. Listen, I looked at my blog the other day. I'm like, wow, I am super guilty of this. Like, should I go in? And so, yeah, we definitely need to be adding. And even once a month is better than doing it like not at all.
Okay.
You know, like every 6 months, every 5 months, that's way too long. So if you could even find a way to do it like once a week, that's even better, because chances are your competition isn't even doing it at all. So anything that you can do to kind of bump up your Google real estate on those first pages and just finding ways to show up there is going to be a bonus for whatever you're trying to do.
And not for all my pages, for a couple of my pages, the ones that I know like I really do need to show up and they're really important in my priority list right now, I just outsourced to blog content. Like I did like my outlines, I did the ideas, I gave them resources, and I just went to like, I think it was Upwork. I just outsourced it, and I'm just like, oh, I just got like 10 blogs and this will keep me going for 10 months right now. Totally fine that I didn't have to write it. I think it cost me like $100. I'm like, take my money. Right. I don't care.
Yes. Yep. I hear you.
So the other thing I used to do that's probably not a great idea, and I know I've learned this from someone else. So we post a lot of pictures on our website. So in the title description of the picture, the caption, the alt text, and whatever the fourth thing is behind that gallery there, I copy and paste the same thing. So it usually says something like Ottawa makeup artist, top Indian bridal makeup artist, Brampton, comma, Toronto makeup artist, comma, Toronto wedding photographer. And so I'll have those 4 keywords and then copy and paste into all 4 sections of whatever it shows me for that picture.
Okay.
So is this something that Google is going to be penalizing me for? Is this keyword padding as well? Does it even do anything? Is it even helping?
I feel like when it's repeated like that throughout the different pictures, it's not doing you any justice.
It's like every picture.
Yeah. So I would even use like the website, like ask the public. And once you know what that main page is, just start adding other things that all kind of relate to that, because Google's going to look at that as more as a whole and say, okay, yeah, this looks like it's making sense. But if it's looking at all these pictures and it's all kind of saying the same thing, it won't necessarily penalize you, but I don't think it's going to help you rise in the search results. And we definitely want to.
I'm just confusing it then.
Yeah, I would definitely like use it on one, and then on the next one, try different ones that all still kind of relate to your core subject.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, this is amazing. I feel like the lash industry has so many people helping people do things and learn things. When it comes to the makeup industry, like nobody wants to share anything. I feel like everyone's very secretive, and there's a couple people out there that are really stepping up and providing a lot of information, but I feel like it's just a matter of like the same thing that we see in the lash forums.
Yeah.
It's just like the blind leading the blind.
Right.
It's literally it's so sad. And I've been doing this for 12 years, and like I haven't changed the way that I've been doing things.
Right.
So luckily I'm still on like page 3, so I'll take it, but
well then shoot,
it's not cool.
You definitely have a chance to rise up in those search results for sure. Just a few tweaks and you would be there.
All right, I'm going to work on that for sure. Captions on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, like the physical text that we're putting in there, is any of that even relevant to Google, or is that a separate domain on its own?
I've seen people pop up sometimes, but I don't feel like it is. I've seen it more with YouTube, just because Google owns YouTube. So they kind of are synergistically working together, while the other ones, I think it's kind of like a last resort type of thing. If you think about, if someone's looking for something in particular and something happens to pop up in a tag or a caption on some of the social media platforms, it'll pop up. But for the most part,
okay.
I mean, this is something you can even just kind of test yourself, is just search for something and see how many actual social media pages come up. I would say out of all of them, Facebook would probably turn up more than some of the other platforms, not including YouTube, because I've tested that myself a couple of times just to kind of see. And for whatever reason, I just don't find that a lot of the social platforms will pop up. I think it's just because that's not really what they're intended for. But I will tell you what does show up sometimes, and people sleep on this platform, and I myself have been guilty of it, is Pinterest. So if you're not utilizing Pinterest, that's kind of a big one, because Pinterest is completely different than pretty much any other platform. And stuff can stay evergreen on Pinterest, which is different than any other platform as well. So when you're looking for something, a lot of times stuff will pop up on Pinterest. And I find my biggest frustration when I find something on Pinterest is that it leads to a dead end. So if you're going to use Pinterest, use it to the point where you're really delivering. So if you have a picture, it's gorgeous, it's of someone that you did, just put it in there as it is, and then make sure whatever they click on can go directly to either booking with you or learning more or how to find your ideal makeup artist, just something worth value. Because that's one of the reasons why I've fallen back from using it as like a search engine, because so many times I find something I'm in love with, I click on it, it's like, oh, sorry, that link's broken, or that takes you to some link, nothing. I'm like,
I wanted to learn how to make that. Yeah. Where are the instructions?
Yes, or tell me where to buy it. Where can I throw my money after that? And it's like, nothing. Sorry. It's like, ugh. So if I had to say anything, especially us being in a visual industry, is to start kind of playing around with Pinterest a little bit more. And I'm actually trying to learn more about it now, because I feel like it's evolved since it first came out and everybody was like rabbit holed into Pinterest. And it's like now people are kind of forgetting about it a little bit. But a lot of times when I search for things, a Pinterest pin will pop up and I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of have forgotten about Pinterest. So if anything, I would say focus on just the platforms that work. And I know for me, social media coming up in search results just hasn't worked for me.
Okay. So when it comes to Pinterest, it's almost like you want to do the blog. So let's go back to finding your ideal makeup artist. So you start with your keywords, you create the blog post around that, make sure you're not padding your photo captions with just random keywords, make sure they're relevant, maybe put the question in there as well. And then you put up a pretty picture on Pinterest. Are you titling it to match the blog post?
You could, or you could actually just, wherever Pinterest is asking for that link to go back, make sure that link goes right back to that blog post. Because then that's another outside link coming back in, which is another thing we want. It's a little bit different. Ooh. So it's not the same as like if, again, like Huffington Post or something linked back to it, just because Pinterest it's all how Google looks at the particular website. So it's looking at Pinterest different than it's looking at all these other like news aggregator type sites. But it does help because it is an outside link and going back to that blog post. So anytime you can reference back, you definitely want to.
Okay, so the caption of the Pinterest photo would more be around like pretty bridal inspo or pretty bridal makeup or something like that, and then link it back.
Yep.
It's a great idea.
And if you can tie it into what that blog post is, again, that goes with that relevance thing. And when people click on it, you know that they're very warm to what is going to be on that page when they get to there versus just a bunch of random makeup captions or titles. You want it to be specific because, again, that's helping you draw in those people that when they get on that page, they're going to be like, yes, and that's what you want.
So if I start doing all of this, if I start blogging today and I start fixing my keywords and I start putting up more relevant content and linking everything to Pinterest and making sure that my name and address and phone number is correct across all the links, will I start seeing myself come to the first page within like 24 hours, 72 hours, a week, 2 weeks?
No, it's definitely not an instantaneous thing. But the funny thing about that is that in the SEO world, we tell people it can take anywhere from 30 days to 90 days to see anything. But I myself have tested this theory, and depending on what you're trying to target and do, I've seen my own stuff that was in no man's land, didn't even exist. I've created it and I've seen it show up on the first page within like a week. So I don't like to say that's the norm. I think it's because of all the things I notice specifically do. And that's what I'm trying to put together so people will have that. Like, listen, if you're literally buying your domain tomorrow and you post your first blog post next week, that you can still possibly and have that potential to show up on the first page if you're doing these particular 10 steps. Because then you're going to know what you're doing and that system will help you get there versus I'm just randomly trying. I don't know. I know I'm supposed to have SEO. I'm just doing whatever. If you have those things, then you have a greater chance. And I've personally witnessed it myself. I put together like an actual course where we literally built a website from scratch. And then I showed that it wasn't showing up. And then I've shown, hey, look, it's on the first page now. So it's definitely possible. You just have to know the things you have to know.
You need the golden map.
You do. I like that.
The golden map. That's what you're going to be calling it, Rickina. And now, what about Google My Business? Like, is it really that important in terms of keeping it updated regularly? Like, I know we need it. I know our information should be correct, but if I put photos in there like 3 years ago, do I need to update those photos? Do I need to update my hours for like long weekends and stuff when I get those emails? Because I just delete them.
Yes. And here's why. Because Google My Business is huge. Because what happens is that Google My Business profile is showing up when people are looking for things in maps, or if they go to a search and it shows those profiles in the map. So it's funny because I've never actually been able to see it myself and understand that I'm seeing it. I think it's already just like programmed in that when I'm looking for something, I see something, I see their post. It's like I don't even realize I'm looking at their Google My Business profile, but it is huge in terms of like the views that you get, how many people will see a picture. And the thing with Google My Business is a lot of times when you do a post, it only lasts for 7 days unless it's an event. So when you go to Google My Business profile app and you create a post, it will expire in 7 days. And then it'll send you that email saying, hey, your post is getting ready to expire. That's your cue to post another. And honestly, I try to post almost every day. And when I do that, when we were in the mix of being able to see people for appointments, I would notice that I would see an uptick. And I typically will attract anywhere from 3 to 5 new clients every week. But when I would post every day or sometimes a few times a day, I would see an additional like 3 or 4 new clients.
That's insane. That is a huge.
Google My Business is huge. Like just posting and it literally just takes a few minutes and you don't even have to be like super technical with like what you put in the caption and whatever. It just works really, really well. And that's why I'm so adamant about telling people claim your profile, post to it every day, post pictures, and just put information out on Google My Business. Because I mean, within a few days, sometimes I can get like 1,000 views on a picture. And I'm like, what? How?
3 to 4 more clients a week? That is like the goal for most people. If I had that for 1 month, I would be happy.
Right.
Like that's it. My marketing would be done.
Right. So it's good. I feel like if anybody that's listening is going to take anything anything from that, it's Google My Business. Start there, get used to posting to it every day, be educational, be beautiful in the pictures, because it really works. It really does.
And are you taking the same post that you post on Facebook and Instagram and just copying and pasting that over to Google My Business, or is it a different type of post? Like, do you need different type of content?
It can be. Sometimes what I do is, depending on the phone that I've taken the pictures with, I'll post on Google My Business first. And then I'm really bad about posting like on Facebook. It has to remind me, be like, hey, you haven't posted on Facebook in a while. I'm like, oh yeah, Facebook. I post a picture and, hey, whatever. But yeah, it can be the same. It doesn't matter just because it's completely different platforms. And again, Google just wants to show those beautiful pictures relevant when people are searching for whatever service near me. Those kind of things are huge. And you don't even have to use those particular keywords. You can, but it's just because it's attached to your Google My Business profile, which is attached to claiming your position in the map. That's how it all comes together. It's like two things of Google coming together. And
Do they let you auto publish or schedule it ahead of time and publish it?
it doesn't. There is one platform, and I forget which one it is now because I stopped using it. It wasn't Tailwind, because that's the one I use now. There was this other one that would let you do it, but you had to use like an API or something. And I'm not good with like coding stuff. But if you do know someone, there is like one or two platforms that will let you auto post to it. But it's something about because things expire or something like that it's challenging to do it. So
you might as well just use the app.
Yep. And it's super easy. Like, you literally just hit the app, hit the little plus button. It'll pop up your pictures you've done recently, scroll through, figure out which one you want to post, and then just say, another gorgeous set of lashes here in Toronto from whatever your specialty is in makeup, call it a day, and then just post again the next day.
Sweet. So if anyone's going to start anywhere, if they don't have a website right now, they need to get a website and make sure they get that domain. And then if they really want to focus their attention to have immediate impact, I guess would focus on Google My Business first.
Yes.
And get used to posting there, and then go into like the blogs and the keywords.
Yes.
And so forth.
Yeah, because blogging definitely does take more commitment. And once you start it, it's kind of our duty.
It's a pain in the butt, man. I want the results without the work. Is that too much to ask for?
I've heard that a lot. I've heard that.
Okay, that's incredible though. That is amazing. My mind is like going a mile a minute right now. So is there a way to gauge what you're doing is working? Like, is there a way to accurately measure it other than just taking a screenshot of where your page is and see where it goes to? But
I feel like, I'm sure there is. I think because my mindset is set that I know if I put in the work, it's going to pay off in consistent clients booking. And I feel like for me, it doesn't happen as much. But when I was really, really hustling and I didn't have the clientele that I have now, it was like I would post and then I would see like, oh, it's like uptick. And then all of a sudden I'd get comfortable and I'd get complacent. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got like one appointment this week. What gives? And I'm like, ooh, I haven't posted in like a month.
Yeah.
Crap. You know what I mean? So it's really hard to kind of gauge that what's happening. What I love about Google My Business is that it shows you like, hey, you posted however many times last month. You got like, I think my last count was like 75,000 people saw my pictures in March. And I was like, what? How? Like, how? And it's giving you that like, hey, you're working and this is what's happening. This is what you're getting. And I can go back and say, hey, from those 75,000 views, I had 20 new clients that booked appointments. So that for me is how I gauge it. Outside of that, unless there's like some platform or something that will go in and like show you just have to do it and just have the faith that it works.
I think that's the best way of gauging it though, right? Because in the end, it's about getting clients in, right? More than anything else.
Yes.
More than the number of eyes you get on anything. It's just like, is it converting into clients in dollars? Because at the end of the day, we all love what we do, but if it's not paying our bills, we can't continue to do it, right?
Absolutely.
So, I'm so grateful that you came on and chatted with me today. This was amazing. Sure. I am super excited for your new updated Google course as well, because I know like it's going to be incredible. But do you want to tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can find out about your podcast?
Yeah. So my podcast is called Client Attraction Beauty, and you can find it on my website, rickinavelti.com. And it should be uploaded on some of the like podcast directories. I know Spotify, we submitted it there, and TuneIn, the one that goes through like Amazon Alexa, it's there. And a couple of other ones. I'm still working with iTunes, but I'm not an Apple person, so I'm having some troubles.
It was a little bit tricky for me as well. It took me a couple of days and I was on the phone with them. And then by the fourth or fifth day, I tried again and it worked. And I was like, yes, okay, done.
Right.
Fine. By the time this podcast goes up, your podcast will be live everywhere as well. And I'll definitely link it all in the show notes so everyone can easily click.
Thank you.
You're amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Anytime that I can get on and connect with other people in the industry and just share, I'm all for it. So I appreciate you having me.
All right, have a good night.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Bye. You guys, I first heard Rickina speak at a conference and I had pages full of notes that I did nothing with after. It wasn't until after we recorded this episode, I finally sat down and carved out some time to do and implement these tips that she was talking about. And now, a year later, we recorded this episode a year ago. I told you, it's been a really rough time. I've hired help and reprioritized the show. But yes, a year later, I'm now on the first page of Google for every one of my businesses. I'm top ranking for 2 or 3 of those businesses. And guess what? I have not even introduced blogging into that mix yet, or YouTube videos for that matter. So carve out some time and really put your notes into action. If you're driving or if you're working while you're listening to this and you didn't get a chance to take any notes, I've done the heavy lifting for you. Head on over to neelamcore.com for the episode page with all of today's show notes, the key takeaways. You're welcome. And thank you for being here with me today. It really means a lot that you stick around till the end because I know that you got value from this episode. And if you got value, it can greatly help another artist too. So please do pass this episode on to a friend or leave us a review on iTunes so that other artists can find us and work on growing their business too. See you next time.